Hey, it's Sam, and in this video I'm going to discuss Vedic astrology and how it is an overarching science that encompasses the neuroscience and the quantum physics. Neuroscience and quantum physics actually affirm what astrology has known and been evaluating for thousands of years. We're going to talk about that and also how Vedic astrology works, why it works the way it does, and I'm going to give you an exercise to really help you manifest some of the things that you are looking to manifest and set up like a daily ritual that can help you change and sort of move the needle on some of these areas in your life that may be stuck. So check it out. So one of the things that I didn't talk about in the section on quantum physics was this thing called a quantum leap. And actually we say this all the time. The term quantum leap actually derives from quantum mechanics when they realized that particles, when they run that interference pattern or when they run that diffusion pattern is what it's called, that has that probable ratio, that probability ratio that we talked about. One of the things is that what they noticed was that particles, when they move within this probability curve, they don't actually go like from here and then here, and then wind up here. They actually make a quantum leap, which again, scientists don't understand how a particle can be here and then be here, like immediately or like simultaneously, but there's nothing in between. They're in these very particular grooves. And they saw that when they would move, when they would change position, they would make a quantum leap from here to there. Now again, these things are measured through our senses, so what we now kind of infer is actually what's happening is they're passing through areas, maybe these are areas of dark matter or interdimensional realms that we can't see, but it appears to us that they're making a quantum leap. And the very diagram that they drew was basically like a solar system. And I drew this for you because now that we're talking about astrology, it's amazing to see that once we start looking at, and we've all seen pictures of atoms and how they move, they're basically orbiting a sun, like a nucleus, and then they're orbiting around it, just like our solar system. It's a surprise to anyone that on the quantum level, on the microscopic level, down to the most infinitesimal layers of existence, we're looking at something that looks very much like what we see in the largest scale of existence here on Earth, which is we're in a solar system. And there are planets orbiting a center body, which is the sun, going around it and creating life. When we examine the infinitesimally small, we see the exact same pattern. Hello? So just from a macrocosm, microcosm point of view, there's a legitimacy for the structure of a solar system and for astrology. So astrology is really the study of our time on Earth, life on Earth. And the planets are set up to be related to our lifespan and our time on Earth. Now, I want you to ponder this for a second because, again, we consider time to be a very kind of relative concept, but, or time to be a rather fixed concept, I should say, when it's actually incredibly relative. So, for instance, when we look at something like we just said on this quantum level, quantum time moves so fast that we can't even perceive it in this world. Particles that seem to be everywhere at once, they're probably not everywhere at once. They're moving in a space, in a phase of time that's so much faster than us that we can't perceive because we're perceiving with our sense organs. To continue with the model, on Earth we have an Earth time. We generally evaluate time based on Earth time. Like 100 years is a long time because we only live about 70 or 80 years. 5 years is not that long because we live about 70 or 80 years. But 5 years for a mosquito is 20,000 generations or something, who knows. So time is very relative, and life on Earth and the orbits of the planets are set up to give us this version of time. We want to understand, when we start to understand astrology, even on a very basic level, physical bodies and the processes in our bodies are timed to the planets. And this isn't just a coincidence. I'm going to explain the solar system and the age of the solar system in a minute and how and why that works. But we want to understand on a larger scale that our entire life and perception of time comes from the solar system that we inhabit, and the speed of those planets, the speed of the Earth around the Sun, the speed of the Moon around the Earth, the speed of the other planets are totally locked into our version of time. And again, it's very abstract. It's not a universal, because there's also things like galactic time, which has to do with maybe our galaxy in relation to other galaxies, or our solar system in relationship to our galaxy. You know, the billions of years it takes for our solar system to go around our galaxy, that's a version of time as well. And then you have, like, you know, universal or cosmic time, which is even beyond that. And so, you know, which is, you know, billions and billions of years, and yugas and kalpas and these measurements of time that the Indians talked about that extend into, you know, quadrillions of years, which we can't even imagine. So, for instance, if we were looking from galactic time, like, you know, hundreds of billions of years, at the Earth and how fast the planet's moving around the Sun, if we're a being that lives in galactic time where things move much slower, and we try to perceive our solar system through a gigantic microscope, our planets and what we're doing would probably look very much like the atoms that we perceive in quantum time. You understand? It's the same patterns. But if we measure time in billions of years, then our 100-year lifespan and the timing of our solar system would seem incredibly fast, just like quantum speed looks to us when we perceive it. I'm telling you this because on a very simple level you want to understand, simple and profound level, that your entire existence, your entire perception of time, your entire perception of your body and the speed of your body, the heartbeat, you as a human being, completely comes from the solar system you inhabit. And astrology is the study of how that spiritual power comes down into the realm of time and form and karma, and all of these things are empirical structures, unfailing laws of the universe. And I don't just mean physical universe, I mean Dharma, the cosmic universe, cosmic order that governs all of these things. The speed of the planets, this is why the planets aren't just rocks. They are carving out a certain increment of time, and you have a relationship to it, and it's directly related to the life lesson that it brings forth and everything else. They're all related. We take so much for granted. We don't even really understand what we're in the middle of. For instance, right now, the Earth you're standing on is spinning 1,000 miles per hour at its axis. On its axis, it's turning 1,000 miles an hour. That's incredible. And it's going around the Sun at almost 70,000 miles an hour. Yet it feels very stable. I mean, we hit a speed bump on the road and our head hits the ceiling. If you've ever ridden in a rickshaw in India, right? You're like, but yet, because of cosmic law, divine order, everything unfolds simply. The Earth looks like this flat platform that we're just walking around on. Here I am on my Earth. It's a big rock, spinning 1,000 miles at the equator, going around this big ball of fire at 1,000 miles per hour. I mean, at 70,000 miles per hour, effortlessly. And every function of your body is timed to that sacred rhythm. So behind me I have a couple illustrations that really shows how spirit takes form and how the astronomy of our solar system is reflected back in the astrology. Astrology is sacred astronomy, like you've heard me say many times. And here are a few examples of what I'm talking about. I have this formula behind me. This means length equals diameter times 108. And that means, simply put, that the distance between the sun and the earth and the sun and the moon are 108 times their diameter. Simply stated, you can fit 108 moons between us and the moon, and 108 suns between us and the sun. It's actually about 108.75 something. It's closer to 109, but 108 is a number that works. It's very close. So this is the reason why we have this sacred number 108 on like mala beads, prayer beads, in all cultures, by the way. This is the reason why the sun and the moon look exactly the same size to us when we have an eclipse. Have you ever thought it's a little peculiar, especially a solar eclipse, because that's when the two line up, that the disk of the sun is perfectly blocked out by the disk of the moon? The moon fits perfectly inside the disk of the sun, even though these are two arbitrary orbs that have nothing to do with each other. One is a gigantic ball of fire, another is a little rock, and yet one fits exactly inside the disk of the other. It wasn't always this way, because the moon is slipping out of its orbit about a half an inch per year, and it took billions of years for the moon to get to that point, and it's slipping out of its orbit about a half inch every year. In fact, the moon and the earth aren't exactly, they're actually orbiting each other. There's a thing called the barycenter, which is the actual center point between the earth and the moon. They're really like extensions of each other, which is kind of a lot to go into, but needless to say, the simple thing to understand is that the sun, moon, and earth are what have created life, and it's the sacred vibration between these three bodies that have allowed for consciousness to unfold on earth, because it's only been in the last couple 100,000 years or so that the moon has been in that sacred 108 vibration with the sun. Before that, the moon was closer. And again, you have to understand, this is not just some arbitrary, strange astrologer trying to extrapolate some meaning. This is not usual. You go and try to find two objects that look exactly the same size from where you're standing. It won't be easy. And it took billions of years for this to happen. And most importantly, these are the two reasons there's life on Earth. If the sun were to explode, you would be dead immediately. Of course, if the Earth were to also come out of its orbit, all the weather patterns on the Earth would change, and it wouldn't take long before we would be dead as well. Because it's the moon going around the Earth that regulates the seasons and the tides and keeps the weather patterns flowing more than anything else. So the sun and the moon and the Earth are the three main forces of life that have created the situation for life on Earth. And it's taken billions of years for that to happen. Your body is timed to the orbit of the Earth going around the sun and rotating on its axis once, getting sunlight, this direct ratio of sunlight based on the way the Earth is tilted and the way the Earth turns at the perfect speed. Your entire circadian rhythm is timed to the Earth turning once on its axis. That's a day, not just for the Earth, but for your body, for your inner clock. Your entire organism is timed to the Earth. Women's menstrual cycles and reproductive cycles and other things are completely timed to the moon. Other cycles within our body are also timed to the moon. So again, these two beings created our body. How hard is it to extrapolate that they also produced consciousness? Think of it this way. Let's say that you create something. Let's say that you write a poem. Okay? You're going to know everything about that poem. You're going to know how it was created, what came before it, what you were thinking, when you changed this word, what you really meant, the intention, this and that. You're going to know everything about it. You're the creator of that thing. And the creator of that has the wisdom of it. What I'm saying is it would be absurd to say that these beings, by the way, the sun is an immense being. It's a gigantic ball of fire that's been there for 4.5 billion years. Same way with the moon and the earth and all the other planets. That these beings that have created life on the physical level, which we know, have absolutely no essence whatsoever. They have no consciousness. There's nothing to them but this big dumb rock or big ball of fire. Of course, that makes no sense. First of all, we don't even know how the sun does what it does. The same way with the other planets. All the planets are amazing in their composition and their speed and all this other stuff. So these are all immense sentient beings. And before we discount that, it would be preposterous to assert that a being that has been around 4.5 billion years has absolutely no essence at all, especially if it's part of a creative matrix like this solar system, especially if they literally are the things that created life. Because if it's not for the sun, nothing's alive, or if it's not for the moon. So we want to understand something about the age of our solar system. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Now, for most of that time, about half of that time, there was really like nothing here. There was like maybe a single-celled creatures started around this time, and then double-celled creatures, and then some things started to wiggle around in the oceans. But it wasn't until 500 million years ago, when we had the Cambrian explosion, that we started to see life. And that doesn't mean people and tigers and dinosaurs. That came a couple 100,000 years later. But we're talking about, 500 million years ago, we started to see like some fungus and some actual things start to swim and become alive. And then it started to explode. Dinosaurs, I don't remember, I think it's like 500,000 years ago, things like that. So anyway, this is like 9/10 of the length of time has passed from the beginning of our solar system until we started to have life. Now, the reason I'm drawing this out, 9/10 of the time, there was really nothing here. So what was going on? Well, what was going on is the universe and this our solar system was creating this amazing form. Through billions and billions of years, this intelligence was slowly created. Think of your physiology, your ancient physiology, and how much wisdom is in your body. Your body is just, your heart is beating, you're breathing, your autonomic functions are working. All you need to do is eat food and swallow it, and your body knows exactly what to do with it. When I talked in the first video about the reptile brain, I was saying this is actually the smartest part of who we are. Even though it's just the reptile brain, it's also in charge of all of our physiology, all of these autonomic functions. This is why we have a lot invested in our fear and our anger to keep us alive. And it's where a lot of wisdom takes place. So that wisdom of the cosmos is folded into every cell of your body. This is why every cell knows what every other cell is doing. Immense wisdom. It's the wisdom of the universe that you're just walking around in your body. It's remarkable. And so this genius is folded into your physical body. And then also, of course, because of consciousness and other evolutionary factors now, we're not just a physical body walking around. We've evolved into a state where we can have self-reflection as a human being and evolve into higher spiritual dimensions and things like that. But you want to understand that this redundant genius built into every cell of your body is what astrology is really showing. It's not just this kind of abstract kind of woo-woo thing. It shows, and you have to understand how from the most subtle dimensions to the most physical expressions, astrology is showing an evolutionary path. Saturn doesn't just show your commitments to things and your relationship to time, but it also, happens to show things like your bones and your nervous system and your stress and fear. Nervous system, fear, nervous system, Saturn. Long-term, things that endure for a long time. Your bones. There is no separation. So it's amazing stuff. And again, like I said at the beginning here when I talked about time, all of our life processes and life lessons are governed by the orbits of these planets. Saturn, every 27 to 30 years, we're going to have to keep learning these lessons. Every 27 to 30 years, he comes back to where he was 27 to 30 years earlier. Jupiter, once every 12 years. The Sun, once a year. Sun, Mercury, and Venus about once a year. Mars, every 2 years. And then as these planets interact with our natal planets, all kinds of things, we're timed, our life lessons are timed to the cycle of these planets, and their relationships with each other show the different forces within us that make for a subtlety and a nuance of consciousness and of experience in life. And all creatures experience that. All creatures experience pleasure and happiness through Venus, and aggression and territory through Mars, but they don't all understand it on the subtle and nuanced level that a human being does, who is able to transform that into higher dimensions. So as a human being, we've incarnated with a more sophisticated nervous system and a more sophisticated karmic set, karmic instructions, and karmic potential. So I'm going to give you an exercise right now that really has helped me get clear and focused about where I want to be going in my life and weed through a lot of the distractions so that my karma is more pure and that my intentions are pure. So check this out. So in the first video, we did an exercise that helped you get rid of some of the worries. Many of them are intangible worries that are just abstract, so that you can get more of a control over these worries. They really rob us of energy. And then the second video, we did something that was related to closing open loops, because we have all these open loops. Oh, I need to call that person. Oh, this thing is bugging me, and I got this thing going on with that person. And to try to really look at our open loops. Because again, these are energy robbers. We go to do something, and our energy is hung up in something. We're not complete. We're not clear and concise. Imagined fears are, distracting us, and open loops with people have us hung up. Once we're able to clear some of that off our plate, or as we're doing it, it's very important to start a day with like a sort of daily ritual or some kind of ritual at some point in the day. I used to do mine in the morning when I would get up to really focus my attention on what it is that I was looking to do in an overall sense. And I'll just give you the example of how it worked with me when I was starting my astrology practice. Of course, at first I wasn't doing it full time or anything like that. And I just sat down very practically and thought about what it would take. And I learned this, just the idea of doing this from other people. It's not like a revolutionary thing, but this is just my way that I did it, was to sit down and be very practical about, how much would it take for me to be able to do this professionally. Literally, like how many readings per day, how much money would it take to make a living, and all of those things. And just sit down and plan it out exactly, and not just reflect on it, but actually see myself doing it, visualize it, and also ask for the thing specifically. With me, it was aligned with my guru. That's why anyone who has a Sat guru like Amma or another guru knows that if you take these kinds of pure intentions at the feet of your guru, it will be fulfilled if you really want something. And it's pure and it won't hurt anyone. Especially if it's aligned with a higher vision. If it's, I want to make a lot of money, and then you visualize how much money, that's just sort of vapid. And the guru might give it to you also, so that you'll get it and realize that's not the thing. But especially if it's something beautiful you want to bring into the world, you reflect on the highest vision of that. Like for me, it was very simple. I would say something like, Amma, please bring me the people I can help, and then let me help